It was good, y'all. It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into the KCSA pod over here on YouTube, where you can watch us. You can check us out. Hit that like and subscribe button below. If you have not subscribed yet, go ahead and do so. If you're listening to us on Spotify, thank you so much for all of our followers there. Make sure you rate and review us. Leave us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. Christopher Tenpenny, Keegan Russell with you here. Day one of NFL free agency tampering. The legal tampering day is officially here. Not that these deals haven't been in the works for a couple days.
Right.
League year is still, a day and a half away officially from the new year starting. But today was day one of the legal tampering where deals could be announced. Obviously, a ton of things happened today in the NFL. One of the worst days for it to happen because Twitter was down half the day. So everyone's, running around trying to figure out how to get information. So a lot of interesting moves across the NFL. I might ask you about a couple of them, but we got to talk to Chiefs, of course. They make a couple moves today, a couple moves over the weekend since we talked last week. So I want to cover all of that. Let's start though first with probably the big one today. Chiefs sign offensive tackle Jaylon Moore, the backup left tackle from San Francisco. One of two 49ers signed today by the Chiefs. Backup left tackle behind future Hall of Famer, All-Pro Trent Williams. Played 12 games this year, started 12 games at left tackle in Williams' absence. Not the biggest, flashiest name on the free agency side from a tackle position. He's not the Ronnie Stanley that a lot of Chiefs fans were probably hoping for. But to me, this felt like a pretty simple, potentially higher ceiling, but low cost to get invested into. He gets a 2-year, $30 million deal, about $22 million guaranteed. So it's essentially could be a 1-year deal. To where they could reset. So it's not the long-term solution at left tackle, but could be another stopgap for a year. I have some thoughts on this, but what's your take on Jaylon Moore signing with the Chiefs to be our left tackle, at least for this upcoming season?
I think it was the best option that they were available to obtain within the price range. Like, because you look at some of the other deals out there, it was either trading away, Tunsil got traded for quite a few picks, and then the other Moore got like $80 million to go down to Tennessee. You never want to copy Tennessee's model. So I honestly don't hate it because it's like, it seems like a lot of money for an unknown player. That's because it is, but that's just the nature of the left tackle position. So the Chiefs did it as smart, it shouldn't be surprised as smartly as they could. Worst case scenario, it's a very expensive 1 year, $21.5 million with not a lot of dead cap for the second year. Best case is the sample size was a show of what he can do because he has a very good PFF grade. He doesn't commit penalties. There's a lot of things to like, and he may just prove that he can sustain that over a 17-game season. And instead, at the end of the year, we're talking about extending it and becoming a 3 to 4 year deal. So I love the move. I think there's a lot of options, and I don't think even if it's worst case scenario, it's not going to blow up in their face.
Yeah. Again, it's a very cost effective with potential upside type move.
Right.
You're not throwing a lot of money that way. You were going to have to throw a lot more if you went after some of these other guys. Even Ronnie Stanley re-signing with Baltimore, it was probably a contract that Chiefs could get into, but it didn't seem like he was really ever going to
never a free
get
agent.
free agency.
Yeah. It was like Trey Smith. Trey Smith was never on the market. Ronnie
you
Stanley
were not
was
doing
never
that
on the
trade.
market.
You were not doing that trade for Laramie Tunsil.
No.
And
exactly.
the Texans are not calling you saying, hey, we'll trade you Laramie Tunsil. So that wasn't going to happen. I like this. To me, I think if anything, not only does it say more about the free agency class being average. I mean, I think Moore was listed as the 7th best offensive tackle in free agency, behind a guy like Moses, who signed with the Patriots today.
I think so. Yeah.
34-year-old. Yeah, there was a flurry of roster additions today for sure. But yeah, I like the move. So I think really it speaks to the fact that the Chiefs don't see a guy in this year's draft class in the first or the second round that they think would come in immediately and at least solve the problem for a year. They did it last year with Kingsley, didn't quite work out. Not that it can't work out down the road with him or with another guy like him, but to me, I think this just said more of we'll take 20-ish million and go after a guy who's at least played in the NFL and has had some good tape to show for. And if anything, has played behind one of the best all-time
Right.
left tackles in NFL history. So maybe he's learned a lot. Watched just a little bit of his tape, and I think he looks pretty solid. So I like the move. Doesn't solve the long-term necessarily issue at left tackle potentially, because I don't think he's got the strongest upside as a franchise left tackle, but definitely serviceable. Still developing. He's only 27, so he's still on the younger side for a tackle. Maybe if anything, he becomes your Jawan Taylor replacement next year, and he slides over to right tackle, and you get your left tackle of the future. But don't hate this move whatsoever. Chiefs are still continuously trying to get a little bit younger at offensive line. So if Kingsley slides in at left guard next to him, you've got a lot that you're banking on those two
Right.
to really showcase over the summer. But would you expect there to still be another maybe veteran tackle the Chiefs go after?
It wouldn't shock me. It would depend on how the market plays out. Like if their market goes up, I think they'll be okay with a line of, Wande Morris, Driscoll, and Caliendo kind of as the backup linemen. So I think that they would like to. It's just going to depend on, I think they're going to spend something on the defensive line at some point and a few other depth pieces first that I think it's lower on their priority list to where that may not work out, but definitely something they should be open to.
Yeah, I think we could still see a DJ Humphries return on a 1-year prove it deal again, unless there's teams calling for him. I don't know what his stock is since he didn't really play it all this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if another move like that kind of happens just to have some competition. I don't think we're going into training camp, at least with Jaylon Moore being the only option at left tackle.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be the favorite to be the left tackle considering
I mean,
the contract he got, but I think they're still going to bring
thing.
They're going to bring in another guy to compete. Maybe a higher upside to Wande Morris, a guy that could be another swing tackle that could maybe push him a little bit, or a veteran just to kind of help him continue learning the ropes. Because I don't think you're looking to the other side of the line at Jawan Taylor as a mentor to teach Jaylon Moore how to play offensive tackle at this point. So I think there is a veteran out there that could add to that offensive line room to kind of play that role. How about the second 49er to sign with the Chiefs today? In running back Elijah Mitchell, unfortunately didn't play last year. Hasn't played much of the last 2 years, really, with a lot of injuries. Had a monster rookie season for them, but since then hasn't been able to do a lot. Again, a very low-key signing. You're not throwing much money at, about $3 million. Basically the Samaje Perine replacement, because Perine goes back and re-signs with the Bengals. I think here, worst comes to worst, he doesn't make it out of camp because of injury concerns. But best case scenario here, he's a decent change of pace guy that might have a lot of desire to prove himself worthy because he's missed a lot of time. So maybe he's a guy that gets out there and still has enough left in the tank to, with the injury concerns, to have some sort of burst. But what are your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, this is just your McKinnon or your Perine. Like that's all this move is. He's going to touch the ball 40 to 80 times, depending on how healthy he is this year. And I think it's perfect. I think he's, he has one really good season. I think that was his rookie year, which is almost 4 years ago at this point. But like, again, low risk. I think, again, it's just a good raw depth piece. You're going to draft another running back, whether it's in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And that's what you're going to go into with Pacheco being your 1, with hopefully who you drafted being your 2, and Mitchell being your 3, with Carson Steele kind of in the mix there as a good depth special teamer.
Any chance still opens the door for Kareem Hunt being back, or do you think that was
no? I think that ship has sailed. He's 30. He wore down. I could tell that his body wasn't quite keeping up. He even told stories about how he couldn't get out of bed. Like I think that as much fun as it was to have Kareem Hunt on the team last year, I think that ship has sailed.
Outside of that, a couple of small signings. They re-signed linebacker Cole Christensen today. Re-signed long snapper James Winchester. Watched Turk Wharton get a big contract to go over to the Panthers.
Shout out to Turk. That was awesome.
It was pretty evident he was not going to be back, and with that number, I don't think you're
$30
million back.
Guaranteed, right?
Yeah, Panthers obviously are going to overpay a little bit because they got to get some guys on that roster. But yeah, $18 million a year for Turk Wharton, definitely deserves it. Wish him the best of luck. Hopefully his career. I mean, he's got a couple Super Bowls, so he's got that for him. But I don't know if the Panthers are going anywhere. That's most of what happened for the Chiefs today. How about before we go to these other moves from the weekend? Was there any other move today that really just stood out to you NFL wise, or one that you're sitting here scratching your head?
Oh, I really think the Titans spending for that left tackle. The other Moore, I don't even remember his
Dan
name.
Moore, right?
Dylan, something like that. I never even heard of the guy. And then Steelers fans weren't apparently in love with them or too bummed they lost. And then he got
80
50 million
million.
guaranteed, over 80 million over 4 years, 50 million of it guaranteed. Like that was a head scratcher to me. All the other moves, like on some level, kind of made sense. It wasn't too. I mean, there was some craziness to it, but nothing that made me go like, "Oh, that's gonna blow up in their
How
face."
about DK to the Steelers? I did
Yeah,
not
I
really
like it.
see that one coming.
It was a second round pick, and they had to pay him. He's getting making 30 mil a year, which was just not cheap. But Pittsburgh was at the point where they had to do something. I mean, they just offense has been the issue for how long, and they all still go 9-8 or 10-7 every year, and it was like they needed to do something. They went for it. Now they have two weapons on the outside, and I don't know who's going to play quarterback, but at least they've got some weapons to throw it up to. So
Yeah,
they need to do
either
something.
an aging Russell Wilson or whatever they
Aging
think
Aaron
is left on Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers
Yeah.
could be interesting. But yeah, talk about the locker room. That'll be interesting. DK Metcalf and George Pickens fighting over who's gonna
Who
get the
has less
ball
body
thrown to
fat?
them. Yeah, that too. Maybe Pickens demands a trade, but I thought that one was kind of interesting to me. I actually like the Sam Darnold move to Seattle.
Yeah.
It keeps him competitive. Good for Sam Darnold. There's a lot of people going, man, you can't pay him that kind of money. That's the going rate for even
40
an average NFL
Yeah.
quarterback. That is
40
the
mil
going
for
rate. That's
3
just how the
years is nothing for a quarterback. Like, what are we doing?
Purdy's going to get even more than that, and you could say
He's
play
gonna have
level's
more.
not that much crazy different. So I didn't mind that one. Don't really quite know what the Raiders are doing. I don't think Geno's going to make them competitive necessarily, but I don't think they're trying to win next year. You
Yeah.
could say that because they did re-sign Crosby, but I guess the other odd one to me is Myles Garrett, complaining about
I guess
his
that's a good one.
situation with the Browns, and then they go,
Yeah.
"How about we give you a large pile of money? Will that make you happy?" Oh, okay, yeah, sure, cool. I'm good losing for the next couple of years of my career. I
Everyone
thought that
has a
one
price,
didn't make
and the
any
Browns
sense.
found it. And they traded for
Um,
Kenny Pickett, though, so
They did. What a guy that works for me is a big Browns fan. And I texted him and I was like, "Hey, your franchise is saved. Kenny Pickett is going to deliver you guys. So
small hands
good
in that
luck."
Cleveland win, man.
Yeah. Let's move on to some couple moves. Yesterday, of course, the other probably outside of tagging Trey Smith, which we talked about last week. Yeah, Nick Bolton getting the extension yesterday, the 3 years, 45 million, 30 million guaranteed. Um, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on this from Chiefs fans. I think there's a lot of excitement for the player, Nick Bolton, and I think he's meant a tremendous amount to the defense. And of course, as you said last week, big Spags fan of him. The contract was about kind of what I expected to be, about 12 to 16 million a year, as it'll shake up there. Do you feel good though with locking him in 3 years, 45 million, or do you think that money could have been used elsewhere in a more effective manner, considering the fact that a Leo Chenal coming up behind him, and Drew Tranquil kind of played the Mike role pretty well this year?
Right.
The
I don't
dot
think
role.
Leo can't do what Nick does. I think Drew could at least, he's faster. He's not quite the run stuffer that Nick is, but I scratched my head a little bit because like, would you rather have 2 years of Tooney because you probably could have restructured, got that down, and still have money to pay some depth, or would you rather have 3 years of a middle linebacker that's not quite as important of a position? To me, I'd rather have Tooney. But I I don't hate it because how do you not like Nick Bolton? I mean, again, half the fan base was already a fan the second he got drafted, being a Missouri
Oh
guy.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah.
that's
Everyone
awesome.
was like, he's the next Derek Johnson.
He almost was the Super Bowl MVP if that second fumble it was called backwards and he would have 2 touchdowns. Like that one play alone is iconic, and he has some big plays. I mean, you think about the Atlanta Falcons game, you think about some of his other key moments. Like, sure, he has his deficiencies and his position isn't important enough to me to spend 15 million a year, but it was almost like we kind of need to do this. Our defensive coordinator loves the guy and doesn't think that anyone else can do his job. So
Yeah.
here's 15 mil. That's kind of
Yeah,
what it felt
and
like.
I'm good with that because Spags has a ton of trust in him, and we know that the defense is organized very well with Nick Bolton calling the plays. I think the NFL's perspective is, hey, Nick Bolton's a great linebacker, and he was going to get a good contract, but he's not the type of linebacker a lot of teams are going out to get because
Right.
he's not as rangy athletic as some other middle
It's
linebackers.
putting it
But boy,
nicely.
man,
But
can he plug the hole in the rundown and he get a guy off the edge if he need, like when he needs to make the play, he goes and makes the play. And I think that's why Chiefs, keep a guy like him around because they've got enough versatility at linebacker with the group they have. And even though he's, not a big name, but Cole Christensen is a guy they do really like to kind of mix in with her. So I think they like the versatility of their linebacker group and having their leader there with Nick Bolton back, especially if you don't bring a Justin Reed back. You got to have another anchor at each level of the defense. And I think they just, there's a lot of trust in Nick Bolton to be that guy for the next couple of years, assuming his body holds up.
yeah, no.
Last two things. Trey Smith, of course, signs his franchise tag really quickly, probably quicker than most guys sign a franchise tag. So if he presumably will be here this entire season, I would be absolutely shocked if this does not end up in a contract extension over the next few months, unless Trey's really banking on himself next offseason getting an even bigger deal, which he could. I think the other guard that got a contract today was about 4 years, $77 million.
Yeah,
So
and
he's
Trey's
nowhere near to
stress,
Trey Smith. So I think Trey's going, oh yeah, I can get 5 for 120 easily. So I would expect the Chiefs to re-sign him. I don't think there's really any other scenario there because why else would you do the franchise tag? And if
Right.
you're Trey, why would you sign it this quickly if you don't anticipate a deal coming together?
Yeah. Well, there's also the fact that he's a 6th rounder and he hasn't really gotten paid yet. So
Yeah, that's a lot of money for him.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I mean,
but
he
yeah,
was probably I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but they were going through talking about the most undervalued contracts in the NFL last year. And Trey Smith was like top 5 as far as production for value.
Yeah, exactly.
Trey Smith's up there. So he's going to get paid at least this year. Would not be surprised if that extends out though. Then last one they did, of course, they re-signed Hollywood Brown, which kind of funnily happened about the same time we got the news about Xavier Worthy. And, there's still details to come out on that. So we're not really going to get into it. But I was all for this move in the offseason myself, especially the way it's set up. It's another, low base, could be high with incentives. He's got to play. The way I look at the contract is if he misses a good chunk of games, he's not going to get that much pay. So it's incentivizing him to be healthy and to play hard. And I think he, would rather stay here in a system that I think he really does like. I think he complements Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy quite well. You've got 3 guys that can attack different parts of the field. And then they'll pair him with either another veteran, bring back a DeAndre Hopkins or Juju. I fully expect them to still go draft a wide receiver, but I'm okay with this move too, considering some of the wide receivers on the market we're going to get pretty good contracts. I would love to see Chris Godwin, but I don't think the Chiefs were going to actually go give money to a wide receiver this year, considering that they might have to pay Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy in a couple of years. So I like it. Don't mind it whatsoever. I think he has still some of the higher upside of some of the veteran receivers that were on the open market. Would have loved to see Devontae Adams. I don't think the Chiefs were doing that deal. They might have done a 1 year, 18 million, up to 18. I don't think they were going to do the 2 years, 20-ish million a season. But any thoughts on Hollywood coming back?
Yeah, I think with Rashee Rice is going to miss somewhere between 2 to 8 games more than likely, and he's coming off of ACL injury. Like, it's great to have that other option, the guy that knows the system, then, seems to have good chemistry. We didn't really get to see it because of the injury last year, but I have no issue with this. Excited to see kind of what other depth piece they asked with, Justin Watson gone. There goes that wide receiver 4, so they're going to still need to add that, but definitely happy to see Hollywood Brown back.
Yep, saw a lot of Justin Ross hype again over the weekend because
how
of the
could you not?
Really stuff. But yeah, as long as Justin Ross is at camp, there's still going to be the people believing that he's going to find a spot in this roster. But those are the main moves so far for the Chiefs. Where do you see them going from here? Day 1 in the books, nothing else has happened so far. Do you think they make another move here quickly? You still got a lot of defensive line you need to figure out. And then if you're bringing back Justin Reed, and if you're not, do you go get a guy or do you feel good with what you got?
Yeah, I think we'll get news on the Justin Reed here sooner rather than later. And then I think that everyone already thought that they'd probably go D-line with the first pick. I think that's kind of been solidified. And then I expect them to add another D-line piece. So kind of you have a number 1 draft pick, you'll have a good depth guy. And I think, the roster, again, they went to the Super Bowl. And they got a lot of young guys that are going to get better. So it doesn't need, I know it's free agency and we want all these new toys and players. The roster was already pretty good, so they don't need to be crazy. I think they've already done really what they've had to, add a little depth on the D-line, and I think they're in a pretty good place to evaluate what the team looks like after the draft.
Yeah. And we said it last week too. They need to trust that their defensive line guys they do have are going to continue to develop, because they need to develop in order to maintain what the Chiefs have been doing. Because you can't just go give out big contracts left and right on the defense, at least not until Chris Jones is no longer on the roster. But I feel pretty good there. I think each passing day it's more likely Charles Omenihu who also re-signs. I think there was a good chunk of NFL reporters out there that felt, at least from Omenihu's camp, that they thought he would be a relatively quicker sign with another team, and it hasn't come yet. So maybe the longer that goes, the better likely it is that he returns on another deal. But yeah, they're going to sign probably one defensive tackle, then draft a D-line guy, and then I think that's a group they can add to over the summer. To me, I'm looking more at the safety or corner 2 spot as another free agency potential. But again, the market's just not great for it. It's not the best of markets for defensive backs in free agency. We saw a lot of guys get paid today, which means McDuffie's going to get paid.
Man,
And the Chiefs need to sign him quick, or they're going to have to really shell out for him. But I think that's the other part of just looking at the free agency. Is there a guy they can bring in as a cornerback 2 or another veteran safety and do the same thing they did, releasing Tyrann or letting Tyrann Mathieu walk, bringing in Justin Reed? Who's that next guy to fill that role? I think that's where I'm looking at next. But that's all I got in this one. We'll obviously stay up to date, pay attention. If anything crazy happens this week with the official start of the new year, Chiefs are still, by my accounts, it has not updated on Spot Track, but they're still technically over the salary cap with these moves, and they have to be cap compliant by start of the new fiscal year on Wednesday. So I'm sure we'll see some contract restructuring stuff come out in the next 24 to 48 hours. Probably won't talk much on that, but maybe just a little bit on, okay, what space do they have? Because they do also need about $6-ish million, give or take, for their draft picks to sign into. So they're going to clear up some cap space. I don't think we're going to see any releases to be cap casualties. The Chiefs just really don't have much of that. Yeah, unless it's Reed. They really don't have much cap casualty type guys like the rest of the league is going through. But yeah, that'll wrap it up on this one. Thank you guys as always for checking us out. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below if you're watching us over here on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, again, thank you so much for listening on the go. Leave us a 5-star review. Hit us up on any of our social medias. You can follow us at KCSA Pod. That'll do it for this one. We will catch you guys in the next episode.